which at times, we've talked about this, I felt insecure about that. Like, should I go and get that? But what I keep coming back to is that the teachers that have had the most profound impact on my life, I'm pretty sure they don't have any formal qualifications.
Zoe, thank you so much for coming and joining me on the podcast today.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be here.
Amazing. So imagine, Zoe, that we've just met at a dinner party. What's your sort of elevator pitch when you meet someone and tell them about what you do?
Well, it changes, but I'll say for you, I'm Zoe Blaskey and I run Motherkind, which is a wellbeing platform for parents who are interested in their own personal development.
Awesome. I'm really looking forward to kind of diving into how you got into this work. I know that you, and for our listeners' benefit, we've known each other for a few years. And so I know some of your background, that you had a sort of illustrious career in marketing. Can you take us back to that sort of career? And was that the career that you had always aspired to? What was it? What was life like at the time working in that professional capacity?
Yeah, it's interesting. I always dreamed of doing work that I loved, but I wasn't really one of those lucky people who knew what that would be. I also, which is kind of woven into to Motherkind, I also didn't know myself very well growing up, for lots of different reasons. So, but I was always really good at business. My dad ran his own business. I was really super interested in that. So I went to university and did economics, which is kind of nuts to me when I think about it now. No, if
I would not pick that.
No, I did economics. I then found myself applying for lots of graduate schemes, which is kind of what you did. I didn't really question it. I hadn't started on that kind of personal development journey yet. I didn't know about vision boards. I didn't know about dreaming. I didn't know how to connect with what I really wanted. So I kind of just looked around me and saw what everyone else was doing. And everyone else was applying for graduate schemes. So that's what I did. I had a near miss because I nearly got into one of the big consultancies. I nearly got into PwC, which would, no offense if anyone works there, but that would have not been great for me. But luckily, I did apply for a graduate scheme at BMW. My dad was really into cars. And so I kind of thought that I was too. I know now, looking back, actually, I never really was. So I started my career there. But what was amazing about that is BMW is a sort of business where everything is done to an exceptionally high standard. So I really learnt, and my husband, Guy, who's an entrepreneur, tells me that I always forget how valuable that is to me now. Like, I know. And then, you know what it's like, you've got to keep working. I had rent to pay. So then
You're on a trajectory there, aren't you?
Yeah, and I was doing
I'm climbing the ladder.
I was doing really well. Like, it's so true. Like, before you climb the ladder, check it's against the right wall. Like, it was against the wrong wall. And I was doing well because, as I said about the economics degree, like, I can apply myself and I have an ability to not as much anymore, to like disconnect and just crack on.
And so tell me, at the time, was your life also, you've actually touched on this, you've sort of mentioned there was coaching, there was therapy, and was this sort of happening in the background? And can you share a little bit more about that sort of personal, I suppose, awakening and your experience with these modalities?
Yeah, because I was super lucky, because while I was at BMW, I had a breakdown where things in my family and from my past and all just kind of got confronted to me, and I just found it really difficult. So yeah, I was BMW were really supportive, actually, and but the great thing about that was that I got myself on a path of healing. So I found myself into 12-step recovery groups. I found myself going on meditation retreats, yoga retreats, healing, all sorts of modalities. Like, I imagine how you felt when you started World to Do. I was just so excited that all this existed. It felt like a whole new world. And I would spend most of my evenings, I would leave like this corporate job in a suit, quickly get changed and go to like a women's circle, or to see Gabby Bernstein speak, or, go and do some tapping, or, I just really absorbed all it. So I kind of had this parallel life going on where I was kind of corporate in the day and then really getting into my own healing.
What was the first sort of offering that you sold then, now that you had the podcast up and running and were sort of attracting people? Was it the one-to-one kind of coaching package? Can you talk us through that first offering?
Yeah, which was never the plan. Like, I never wanted to do one-to-one coaching, partly a confidence thing, I think. Also, I just didn't really think that I would do that, which is kind of strange given that I had trained in it and loved it. But what happened is at the time as well, it's worth saying, I was only working about half a day a week because Jessie was, how old was she? Like 1.5. And I really wanted to be super present with her. So I was doing some consulting days in marketing to keep, the money coming in, because the podcast and Motherkind made no money for a while, obviously. And then I was doing the podcast like half a day a week. So just getting a weekly episode out was taking all of my energy, focus. I was learning tons. So the other angle, like the revenue stream, wasn't in my mind. I also had some great advice, which was don't focus on the money first, which kind of sounds counterintuitive, but actually what that enabled me to do was just create brilliant content without worrying, like, how am I going to monetize this? So I was really just like creating the content that I wanted to see, as you say, meeting that pain point, sharing it with absolute passion, being really punchy at the guests I was getting on, being super clear about my message. And what would happen is I'd get tons of emails. The listeners were so low, like 300-400 an episode to start with. But I would get like 20 emails, which is quite a high percentage. People would find my email address somehow, like it wasn't marketed anywhere. It was probably like at Gmail, like who knows. And they'd say like, can you coach me? That's how it started. Can you coach me? Can you help me? I feel exactly how you felt, and I want to feel differently. And so to one of these, I said, yeah, okay. I think you had a similar experience, right? I said, yeah, okay. Yeah. I'll coach you. And
sort of pull a number out of thin air to charge something an hour.
I charged nothing. But it is important to say I did know what I was doing. I didn't just okay, I had these trainings. That's an important point. Although I think that is another discussion, is around because some of the best teachers that I've had have not had those formal qualifications.
When you're building a business like this, which is very much, your personal expertise, connecting one-to-one with the client, solving their problem, for you, did it ever sort of feel that it had gotten to a point where you were reaching capacity, you were going to have to think about how you could impact more people and solve more people's problems and sort of go into more of a one-to-many type model?
Yeah, and it happened really naturally. It wasn't really in my plan to do that. But what was happening is, again, like, I wasn't working full time on this. Like, I had Jessie at home with me. So I think I was doing 2 days, maybe I'd up to 3. And I couldn't service. And I felt like, the kind of businesswoman in me felt like, I'm working really hard on the podcast. I'm creating all this demand and I'm turning away like 80% of it, basically, because I didn't have anything to sell to anyone. All I could sell was the kind of high-end one-to-one.
Which is your time at the end of the day, isn't it? And
Exactly. So I thought back end of last year, I thought, right, I'm going to practice. That's how I do everything, is kind of just practicing and testing and seeing how it goes. And then the kind of the hypothesis was, can I convert those at the time the podcast was it still is really growing, like getting 50 to 60,000 a month. So that's a lot of people, a lot of ears that I can help solve their problems with products and services. So the theory was, can I take some of those listeners and create something quite light touch? Like, I didn't want to do a kind of guided 8-week take you through group coaching program. I didn't even want to do any video at that time. I just wanted to test, like, can I take these listeners and get them to purchase a product or a service from me?
I do want to hear your view on kind of the relevance of qualifications and, you know, how important that is in building an expert brand, how important it's been for you versus just getting kind of in the trenches with your audience and finding out what they need.
I would say it's not been so important for my business. Like, I have done coach training. I haven't done like the full kind of accredited. I'm not an accredited coach. Which at times, you know, we've talked about this, I felt insecure about that. Like, should I go and get that? But what I keep coming back to is that the teachers that have had the most profound impact on my life, I'm pretty sure they don't have any formal qualifications. So I think it's an interesting one. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how the industry evolves. For me, the most important thing is boundaries. Like, when I'm sat with someone, I'm super clear about what I can do and what I can't do. And I have a circle of people that I often, and actually, interestingly, the people that I refer to are all full now from referrals from me. So I might say to someone, you know, I can coach you through this, but for this, I think you need to do some regression therapy, or I think you need to do some family constellation work, or I think you need to see a psychotherapist, you know, whatever it might be. And then I refer them on to people that I've worked with personally in my journey. So I know that they are exceptional.
The first is, Zoe, what's one thing that you wish you'd known when you first started your business journey?
Probably to professionalize it quicker.
Which kind of answers my next question, which is, what's one thing that you wish you'd done sooner?
Yeah, professionalize, bring in help quicker.
Why do you do what you do?
Oh, it's my purpose and mission in life is to help parents look within and change their children's experience, regardless of what their experience of childhood might have been.
Mm-hmm. What's the best part of your job day to day?
God, without a doubt, the podcast. Sometimes I can't believe that I feel like I would pay to interview the people that I get to interview. In fact, I have paid to see many of them talk, hundreds of pounds, and yet I get to have an hour with them one-on-one, and I actually get paid for it. Like, how is that? I mean, to me, that just feels like beyond a dream come true.
And you have had some incredible guests. For everybody listening, go and listen to the Motherkind podcast. It's an incredible lineup of guests. And the final thing, Zoe, what's the best piece of business advice that you've ever received?
Actually came from my husband, who is, I'm super lucky, like, he's a successful entrepreneur. He has a dog food business called Pooch and Mutt. And when I was starting Motherkind, he said to me, don't do any planning, just start, because it will look different in 3 months. It will look different in 6 months. It will look different in a year and in 3 years. And he was dead right. And I see so many people like trying to work out like a 12-month plan or a business plan. Unless you were asking for investment, don't do a business plan. Just start. Just start, and your audience will tell you where to go, just like they did with coaching for me, just like it did with, you know, all the other opportunities. My audience have been like, can you do this? Can you help us with this? I could never, ever, ever have written that in a plan, ever. So I think his advice of just action, just take action and then learn from it and take more action is so helpful, because my tendency is probably to procrastinate, and I'm a recovering perfectionist. So, you know, I want to be kind of writing, you know, so actually that was brilliant advice, and I still do that now. I just take action. Let's test it. You know, it's that kind of fail fast thing in tech companies. I think is by far the best advice for someone like me, you know, who wants to have it, you know, maybe mapped out more in my head than it needs to be.
Right, and that gets in the way of you actually moving things forward and helping people.
Yeah, exactly.
I love that. Thank you so much, Zoe. The work you do in the world is so incredibly powerful and so needed. Thank you for showing up, and thanks for taking the time to share your journey with us. It's been an absolute delight.
Oh, thank you. I've loved it.